The Whistler 101 Sessions, a series that seeks to inform, educate, and inspire. Whistler 101, what do you know?
Hi, I'm Mike Douglas. As a professional skier and the board chair for Protect Our Winters Canada, I've seen and learned a lot about climate change over the past 30 years. Whistler is not immune to the effects of climate change. In fact, the polar and mountain regions of the world are warming at more than double the rate when compared to the rest of the planet. In this episode of the Whistler 101 series, we're going to take a look at how climate change is affecting our community, how we're contributing to the problem, and what we're trying to do about it.
Climate change is not a topic of the future. Climate change is happening now. We are in a climate emergency.
We're seeing more temperature increases in the summer than in the winter. In fact, over 2 degrees Celsius increase over the last 40 years.
You can see it all over the place, from the glaciers that are obviously retreating up the mountains to the fires that we have in the summer.
The forests are drier, and that increases the incidence of forest fire, which for Whistler is really one of our biggest climate threats.
I'm the mayor of a ski town, and we had to remove a lift because the glacier had receded so far. This is more than an environmental impact. It's influencing and impacting our economy, and it's a real challenge the way we do things here.
We need to act now, we need to act big, and we need to prepare and adapt to the changes that we are already seeing. "52% of our community-wide emissions come from passenger vehicles and over 35% from natural gas in buildings. So if we want to achieve our target of reducing our community-wide emissions by 50% by 2030 below 2007 levels, we have to tackle passenger vehicle emissions and emissions from natural gas in buildings.
Well, most communities think primarily about their carbon impact in terms of what's happening in their community. For Whistler, our participation in global tourism means that our impact, our major impact, isn't happening in town. It's actually the air travel of people coming to and from.
Roughly within our resort, we emit around 100,000 ton a year. The emissions of guests coming here from all over the world is well over 1 million.
That's something that we don't have direct control over. It means that we'll need to do a lot in the way of advocacy and encouraging our Canadian government to work hard on the transition away from fossil fuels.
We in Whistler were an early leader when it comes to climate action. Early on, we recognized climate change is happening, we need to do something. So we are one of the very few communities who monitor our greenhouse gas emissions every year. But we came to the realization that monitoring is not enough. We need to act. We felt we needed to prioritize, to act on the areas where we have the biggest impact on reducing our emissions. So we developed the Big Move strategy, where we focused on the areas of transportations, buildings, and waste.
Not all the decisions that we're making around climate are easy. We added pay parking at the parks this past summer. And our goal there is to encourage walking and cycling and prioritize those things. I believe Whistlerites can get around on their bikes and walking and by transit. And that's our hope.
We need to create a culture similar to Copenhagen in terms of bike culture to get out of our cars. We need to use much more transit. And we need to transition into EV applications as quickly as possible.
We're moving very quickly on the electrification of the day lots and the community at large. We took seriously the need to see young people transition their behaviors, and so we gave them free bus passes. And man, oh man, did they ever take advantage of that. They filled our buses. And so these relatively small decisions can have large impacts in our community.
Natural gas is our Achilles heel in that 24% of it is from commercial use, 12% from residential use, It's hard to pull it out of people's homes and people's hotels and business operations. We certainly should not allow any more applications in new buildings. And as quickly as we can transition with retrofits with existing buildings, the better. But that's a tough one.
For existing buildings, we have launched the Retrofit Assist program in collaboration with the Community Energy Association and the District of Squamish, where we support and incentivize people to move away from natural gas heating systems to install electric air source heat pumps.
One of our most important successes has been within waste diversion. And you see that success at the recycling depot and through the work of Whistler Community Services at the food bank.
When we think about climate change, we often don't think about waste diversion. Almost 60% of the food that we produce in Canada goes to waste. That equals 56 million tons of carbon emissions a year. In Whistler, we take waste diversion very seriously. We do food recovery 5 days a week, and that is about 3,000 to 5,000 kilograms a month. We check every single produce, can, and make sure it's safe to be consumed, and what can't be consumed actually gets composted and recycled. One of the great projects that we did last year was we partnered with a pig farm in Pemberton. We had a volunteer drive our compostables to there and directly feeding the pigs there. And the pig farmer donated a pig and butchered it for us. And we distributed that meat to our community members who were challenged with food security.
Aware has a number of programs that are focused on climate action here in Whistler. Everything from our Zero Waste Heroes social enterprise, which is all about helping events reduce their waste footprint, to our Project Now, which is a climate action mentorship program that we do with students in Whistler Secondary School, to work that we do with businesses. With Zero Waste Heroes today, we now work with all of the major events here in Whistler and some major events through the whole Sea to Sky. We've had over 100,000 people using the Zero Waste program each summer for the last few years. We've got all but one event that is making 90% diversion of waste, which means that technically it's a zero waste event. And we've got some events where we've managed to reduce their event waste by half in the time that we've been working with them. It's a program that people barely notice it, but it's made huge impacts behind the scene, and it's because we thought about how events are executed and we designed to make it easy for them.
In 2022, we felt also the need to integrate climate change mitigation with climate change adaptation. And that is why we integrated 3 adaptation goals into our Big Move strategy. These 3 goals are to minimize the threats from wildfires, protect our built environment to extreme weather events, and restore and protect our biodiversity and natural areas.
My biggest concern as a city councillor, my number one objective is to fire smart our community. Our job as a local government is to make our community safer, and it's not safe right now. 70% of our municipality is covered in forest. It's not a question if we will have a large, potentially catastrophic fire. It's just a question of when. We have a Fire Smart program, an education program for our community. We're trying to motivate our community to fire smart their own properties. We also have Fire Smart crews that come in and do assessments.
We are going down this path, and so we're now going to need to adapt and change the way we do things. We're hardening our trails so that they're not as likely to be washed away by flood events. Our culverts are getting bigger. We're investing money in ensuring that this community won't need to constantly be upgrading every piece of infrastructure. Right now, we're investing a lot in climate adaptation, and I expect us to do a lot more moving forward.
We have done a lot of research over the last years around what areas are really important for healthy biodiversity, and really the most important areas are related to waterways, riparian areas where we have a lot of biodiversity and sensitive ecosystems. Species at risk habitat is something we have to look at, like old growth forests, and wildlife corridors, to make sure we're not restricting wildlife and the natural environment through our developments.
Collaboration is going to be the key to success on climate, not just here in Whistler, but but globally.
50 people working together can accomplish far more than 500 people working as individuals. And if we really want to tackle climate change at the level needed, I think you've got to get organized or join a group, because that's really the only way that you can speak up and get governments to listen, to get the international business community to listen. This is what we're working on at Protect Our Winters. I mean, the mission of POW is to unite the outdoor community into taking action on climate change. When we get a large group of people together, you've got a lot more power than a few individuals screaming from the sidelines.
I think one of the most important things we can do is be an example. People come from around the world to enjoy the mountains, and if they see less people in cars, more people walking to and from, families doing things different, I think that that's a message they can take home.
We need to prove out net zero on carbon is possible, and thereby becoming an inspiration, an influence to global tourism, which is 10% of the global economy.
Whistler's always been a trend-setting community. I mean, you just have to look at the ski culture here, the mountain bike culture, and how that's spread across the world. And I feel like we can do the same thing when it comes to climate action. If we can work together and show other mountain towns that you can thrive and be sustainable at the same time, then I think the effects of what we do in this valley will be amplified across the world.